This is episode 300 of the Gold Squadron podcast, and today I'm joined by Marcel. Tacos make the best gift, Manzano.
Yeah. Also, this is your 300th Gold Squadron thing. The rest of us is like less.
I mean, so I think I might actually, because there was a couple times I was sick. This is maybe actually 290 something for me.
So we can hold the special stuff for a couple weeks.
Will, what do you think of this list, Hagwood?
I got lists, and I don't know which ones to fly.
Ryan, sorry, the anonymous kangaroo got out of my way. There you go. Thank you. Ryan, you turned them against me? Staniszewski.
When you bring your own ships to help someone play at an event and they turn around and beat you in the final.
And James, tie no more. Ritter.
The curse is broken. I got three tie games in a row, and I thought I was cursed, but I was able to squeeze in to the Sector series, so I'm uncursed.
You just gotta win harder, man. You gotta stop trying to make these close games, gamesmanship and all. Just get more points. That's how you win, right? All right, today's podcast, of course, brought to you by our amazing patrons. Thank you so much. I did post on Discord that you should see over the next week or so rolling emails saying, hey, you're getting swag in the mail. Here's your tracking number and all that jazz. So keep an eye on your email, and thank you for your support and enjoy your swag. As for announcements and news, we have something coming up in a few weeks, boys. Huh?
You say weeks? Only weeks?
St. Patrick's Day.
Less than 4 weeks?
Yeah, Easter, right?
Yeah. The World Championship is around the corner, folks. We are so close. We are so close. Super excited to, of course, be streaming that for you. We are the and this wording is important. We are the official Adepticon coverage of X-Wing at the World Championships for X-Wing. All right. That wording does matter, but we'll be live, and of course, everybody will be in town celebrating for the World Championships. That's going to be the weekend of March 25th with the first day of the LCQ starting March 23rd. Super excited for that. It's going to be a good time. Well, today we're going to be covering some quick hits on a few different topics, and we figured we go ahead and start out with talking about Sector Series, our online series that's currently going on, that is wrapping up at the right before the World Championships. If you haven't seen the calendar I put out, I'll go ahead and just show it here on the screen for everybody to see. It's very easy to see there. Let's go ahead and just make it a little bit bigger. Enhance. I said enhance. Okay, well, there it is. All right, so today is February 27th. Today is the beginning of the second wild card week. We concluded the first wild card week. James, you played the only wild card game that was needed for Sector 1. You won. You want to give us some quick hits?
Yeah, we actually played on Friday on the stream game. Will, remind me, what was that list that I played against, and I'll remember it immediately.
On the Friday game, you faced off against 3X1s and something.
That's right.
Reaper? 3X1s and Reaper.
That's right, yeah. It was Merrick, Juno, Boy Vader, and Faroff, and I was playing 4 Delta 7s, which was fun, but man, those X1s can punch, and ended up he had great target priority and was able to take out Anakin super early, but I was able to whittle Vader down and fair off down to barely squeeze out the win on the last turn of the game. So very close game. Glad I didn't tie that one, because that would have been another tie for both he and I for that sector series. So glad to have made it into the top cut. Ready to face Will in the first week, right? For the cut? No.
Well, no, because what's going to end up happening is, for the Sector series, we have to have a second week because, of course, Sector 4, our problem children, they need another week to sort it all out. As soon as we get them sorted out and we have a final 4 out of Sector 4, we will have we're going to have somebody from each sector facing off to each other. So nobody will play each other in the same sector until potentially the second round of the cut, or if it all works out a certain way, the third round of the cut. So should be awesome. Super excited about it. The culmination happening the week of March 13th and leads us perfectly into the World Championships and that week. So that's going to be action-packed X-Wing. Going to be good stuff. Speaking of action-packed X-Wing, we had an event over the weekend, 105 players facing off in the UK at the Sith Taker Open. So we're going to go ahead and just break down the top cut there for the Sith Taker Open, see what was playing, because really this premier event, we talk about net listing, all that stuff, but this event is a bit of a barometer for potentially what the World Championships look like, right? We've had a few weeks of iteration, a few weeks of thinking of maybe reinventing the wheel, maybe going back to a tried and true to figure out what people may be bringing to the World Championships. And the conclusions of this tournament, I think, leave some interesting things up in the air that we'll hit here. But super excited to break this down. Let's go ahead and start. Ryan, let's hit our winner. Our overall winner, Fawn Longalong. Congratulations for getting that W. What was that top cut list? And give us that little bit of history on it that we were talking about earlier.
So Fawn Longalong actually has been on, it feels like he's been on this type of list for a long time. Anytime I see him place in an event in Europe, he's using this list, which is a Republic list. Anakin 7B, Obi Aether Sprite, just the regular Delta 7. Contrail custom version, not Coruscant version, and then Hawk in the Lat. Hawk Lat has dedicated Agile Gunner 7th Fleet. If you're running 7th Fleet on a Lat, this is kind of like the default loadout, since you have that Agile Gunner for 3 and 1 point left for dedicated. Fawn has been favoring Anakin with shield upgrade, R4 P17 and crack shot. R4 P17 allowing Anakin to do a action similar to pattern analyzer twice a game, so really leaning heavily on the red maneuvers to maximize it. Obi with CLT running shield upgrade, elusive, and calibrate laser targeting. This contrary a little different than we're used to seeing. Not taking a bomb at all, still going for Besh, still really good ability with the lock conversion, but keeping crack shot and opting for shield upgrade. To note, that means every single one of those 3 ships, Anakin, Obi, Contrail, all went above or increased their half-point threshold for chance engagement. They all went to odd numbers instead of even numbers with each of those shield upgrades. And we've seen what that 1 extra health has done for some ships. We see shield upgrades on DT and Scorch and FO. We've seen the direct hull upgrades put on your Mauler and Stabber, your Kickback Torrent, how that 1 extra health has helped a lot of other things. And Fawn opting to try that out with all these ships instead of taking, as an example, you could take R2-D2 Astromech on Kenobi and get similar effect to shield with a little more utility, and you could have got other bombs and stuff. So and we're seeing variations of these loadouts show up still performing really well.
Awesome, yeah, and you said not only is Fawn, Fawn known for playing this list. I think Duncan Howard won an event with a similar list, right? Well, was it Gen Con?
Correct. Duncan Howard won Gen Con. I think it was kind of the coming out party for that list, and a lot of people started adopting it. And I don't know if Fawn had tried a variation of it before Gen Con, but I definitely know after Gen Con is when I saw him show up with it a lot more often, or seeing it along with his name. So he's been on this list well before Battle of Yavin, Coruscant, and Hot Shots and Aces too. So I mean, talk about someone who's stuck to their primary list and likely sticking with it up till Worlds. He'll be very experienced with his list, more so than a lot of people will be with their lists.
Yeah, agreed. And this is, as we continue to go through this, seeing this list be the top Republic, I know that some players, when they're looking at, what list do I bring, it starts to put in a little bit of doubt, right? You're like, I thought Born for this was gonna be just the bee's knees. If you play Republic, you gotta play. Well, this is an argument possibly against that. Do they have some similarities? Sure, they got some similarities, but the different tech can definitely change the way you're flying and how you're going about your flying pattern. So just an interesting thought. We'll continue to take a look at this. Great to see Fan Lang get that win. Speaking of players that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about in a long time, Tom Reed out of the UK with a second place, being our runner-up. James?
Yeah, pretty interesting. Or actually, becoming one of our boogeyman lists here with Boba Fett, Rookcast, and Kanan Jarrus. Boba Fett has a Fearless, Jamming Beam, Proton Bombs, Contraband Cybernetics, the Slave 1 title, Sokatano Crew, and Veteran Tail Gunner. Rookcast in the Gauntlet has Notorious, the Mandalorian, and the Child. Love that combo. Making it possible with Dropseat Bay. And Contraband Cybernetics and the Swivel Wing config. And Kanan, of course, has the Maul crew to make sure that that you have extra force when you need it to reduce those attack dice coming in. Really nasty list. Boba Fett out there doing a ton of damage like Boba Fett does. And Rook is able to just take a unbelievable amount of damage with the Mandalorian and the Child together. Have that white reinforce and that almost infinite almost infinite force. Those two together, along with Notorious saying, "If you want to shoot me, you're going to get strained," and then Rook taking an additional strain on him, and I think that's to roll an additional attack die. Is that correct, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. So, it's a reroll.
Convert.
It's convert.
Yeah,
it's very similar to
right,
Major Vermeil.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, my bad.
Thank you. Also, Vermeil, that's fair off, right? But I know what you meant.
You're actually thinking of Pre-Vizsla Gauntlet from Separatist, who gets to roll
you
an
were
extra
thinking
dice.
of Pre-Vizsla Separatist, but Rookcast's conversion works just like Major Vermeil's conversion.
Yep, just be strained, get a hit.
Yeah, well, with Vermeil's a different
fair off
thing. No, it's Vermeil. Major Vermeil is when the opponent doesn't have a green token. It's the same conversion as Rookcast.
No, I thought Vermeil was the one that the coordinate.
That's Vizier.
Oh, that's Vizier.
Vermeil is the offensive.
You're way off right now. Because someone hasn't played Empire.
Bring it back. I don't play Empire, if you could tell. But those extra mods for Rook on and a reroll with Notorious if the opponent is stringed as well. Just make that a nasty combo. And of course, Kanan. If you do decide to shoot into Rook or Boba, is going to reduce that damage. And if you shoot into Kanan, it's going to reduce that damage and get a force back. So no good targets there. And good luck.
So what we learned there is that if you play against James, bring a Reaper and just say it does whatever, and he won't know.
It does whatever it does.
All right, and
Yeah.
we also know this list that's made really well known by Cam Murray is something you're going to have to think about if you're in the World Championships. But one thing I do want to point out, first, second here in the cut, they did lose a game in Swiss, so these lists do bleed. They do bleed. They are not gods, okay? So you do have a chance. You just have to give yourself the best chance. And, of course, hopefully the scenario is in your favor. All right, let's keep it going. Dom Flanagan bringing some Separatist love here. Marcel?
And by the way, I mean, we're seeing basically this list is a who's who of people we've known for 6, 7, 8 plus years already.
No, but it's not the same. People don't X-wing and involve. I'm just being facetious for anybody. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So Dom did go undefeated he's got that 15 in front of him, meaning he went undefeated during the Swiss rounds. And he flew Django with Elusive, Jamming Bean, Oppress, or Savage Oppress, Proton Bombs, Contraband and False Transponder Codes, Delayed Fuses, Slave 1 title, and the Veteran Tail Gunner. Dirge with Elusive, Proton Cannons, the title, and is it a title? Yeah, I think it's a title, right? And the Proton Bombs. Grievous Grievous is always this. And I think William's favorite ship from the Separatists, DBS 404 with Advanced Proton Torpedoes, Contingency Protocol, and Strut Lock Override, throwing is that 6 dice, range 1 if I'm not mistaken. Range 0 and 1, or just range 1? Just range 1, right?
No, they routed him to be range 1 only.
Yeah.
He doesn't get bonuses at range 0, just like everybody else.
Okay, but still, 6 die, range 1 proton torpedo. Yeah, so it's just a 4-ship list. Obviously did well enough to go 3, that's 5-0, right? Yeah, that's 5-0 for 15 points, and then also won the 32 and the 16, or did they just go to 16? But whatever he won all the way to the top 4. So, yeah, good list. Django Fett, I see Django Fett right below that, which William will talk about, but we've seen this before. I mean, have we seen
Django and Friends?
Before?
I think that most people had been flying a bombardment drone.
Yeah, we saw this with the bombardment drone, not with DBS.
Yeah, different flavor.
That kind of droid filler, you could kind of pick and choose between, I mean, maybe a 3-point vulture if you want that, like throw in the calculate one. But man, what a
3-point vulture ever. Bad.
Yeah. Not when you
only.
can get Initiative 4 Hyena for that price.
That shoots 6 dice.
Yeah, that's very scary. I do want to point out one thing before we move on. I love this list because of the interaction between Savage and 404. If 404 does the barrel linked into red lock, you can activate Savage's ability to spend the force and give that ship a focus. So it's an easy way to really threaten that advanced proton torpedo, and that's really kind of what you want in your filler. Like, go get some objectives, or be such a threat that I could fly a Django Fett next to it, and they won't shoot at Django.
That's that's hilarious. Well, I won't make Will do Django again, but essentially we get to the top 8. Lizam 92 brings Django and Friends. The difference here in the Djangos is treacherous instead of elusive, so still a defensive talent, just defensive in a different way. but the also brings dirge, slightly different flavor. But the other two ships are quite different. Brings Volan Das in that tri-fighter that's modified for organics, and the Flak Afrock prototype. So brought two tri-fighters in there, and bringing it to the top 8 is no small feat, because tri-fighters have not been too much in the spotlight. I think Staniszewski wants to say something about them.
Oh, no. The top 4.
Top 4.
It was ranked 8 in Swiss. Top 4.
Got it. Top 4 in there. My bad. Thank you so much. Now we move on.
I do want to point out that's 5556 for the initiatives there. So really trying to get some aces out of those tri-fighters.
Why play the initiative 4 battle when you could just go up to 5 and 6, right?
Yeah, just be 5. It turns out it's makes most matchups a lot easier.
All right.
You have to drop Grievous though.
Yeah, no Grievous.
I ain't about that life. I'm not
You can't do without Grievous.
Are you sure you get a tri-fighter?
You get a tri-fighter.
I'd love to be happy about getting more tri-fighters right now, but if I leave Grievous at home, that's no bueno.
I'm the first guy that's happy about tri-fighters, and I'm not happy about it.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
All right, we'll move on here to the top 8. Denny the Sicilian, take it, Will.
All right, they have brought Empire. This is X1 7-point Vader, because he's rocking Pattern Analyzer, Fire Control, Mag Pulse Warheads, and Afterburners. I have Gideon Hask with Elusive Ruthless, Cluster Missiles, and Targeting Computer. Iden with their standard Elusive Ion Cannon. Moff Gideon with cluster missiles, overtune modulators, and a targeting computer, and then 2 Academy pilot fillers there. So really leaning in to some cluster missiles on those ties. I know, Marcel, you've played cluster missile Gideon Hask. If you could pull off 2 4-dice cluster missiles, woo, pretty intense. My only problem with this list is that it's just TIE fighters. Vader's going to be pulling some heavy lifting out there. Surprised to you guys. I'm surprised we still see a 7-point Vader. To me, Boy's just so much better.
Yeah, because it would have allowed you to take that Academy, and you got Gideon, Moff.
Sure, you can just bump up the Academy to somebody else.
Yeah, but if you want a 2-action Vader, just bump up that Academy to the coordinating.
The coordinator, yeah.
Yeah, now you've got.
Yeah, if you want
Darth
locks
Vader.
before you Talon roll.
Yeah, now you've got Darth Vader with multiple actions. So, and you've got you got to have a laser cannon out there threatening.
Sure, but it must be that. What do you think, Teal?
The pattern analyzer timing may be the reason for it, right? There is a big contingency of people who they die by pattern analyzers. Like, I get to make decisions in the combat phase. I'd rather just do that.
You're thinking passive sensors, pattern analyzers.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, wrong tech. I don't know, bro. No. I have no idea. I take it back. I take it all back.
Pattern analyzer is better, but you're losing a shield, plus you're losing a convert blank to hit.
Is it the mag war? I mean, so mag pulse gives you the crit for salvage.
Sure.
Is that the reason why?
Crits normally.
You just shoot
that's fair.
Vader prints crits by himself. He doesn't need them.
Yeah, it's for fighting like other I-6s, like another torp carrier, a reinforced ship, or something like that.
It is really good defensive tech. So it's good defensive tech. But if that's what you want, you can there's things you can do. Like you can even fit I don't know. There's other ships that can carry stuff to help that. But anyway, obviously did well enough to go.
Yeah, obviously.
We want Denny to get the win next time. Yeah. Maybe this is how he goes from top 8 to number 1.
Where are the other boys? Where's Stabber and Mauler? That's my big question. How they got here, picking all these other ties before touching Mauler or Backstabber. Well, both really. They're a duo.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, the cluster missiles. I mean, obviously Gideon's doing his best. Was it Malorus impression out there with the 3 calculates and cluster missiles? So
Yeah,
And I only
to-
kind of trust Gideon for that because he can take an Alyssa to do that. Moff Gideon specifically, because there's 2 Gideons. So there's Moff and Hask. Hask, on the other hand, I don't trust getting that locked.
He's gonna have to rely on
no.
just the Iden charge and try to survive.
Yeah, but also another thing to consider there is with Moff Gideon around, those academies become really. They become a lot better because you put them where you want them to be, and then they become the strain battery for Moff's, for Moff's things, and then Vader's shot hits really hard, and ideally by the time you get to Hask is already a native 3-die gun because by then you've probably damaged something. So I mean, it does play well. It's just. It's.
I'm like I said, after playing some of the what I call Magic Dice Vader, where he's just out there, get the fire control system out of here, just put it to a hit. Just feels so much better. Plus, it's kind of a follow up about last week's Vader discussion. It just surprises me that there's a pattern analyzer Vader. Higher ranked than the boy Vader.
Yeah, well, actually, to go back to Ryan's statement a little bit earlier about the boys, that same list that he's got, you can take, if you go down to boy Vader, you can take Backstabber, Mauler, and still have Moff Gideon doing his defensive thing and the 2 academies on there as well. So you're essentially bumping up Iden and Hask into the 2 I5s with an extra hull. Extra die offensively, extra initiative, and the afterburners. So, and then they get other toys like the Predator and stuff like that. So there's options, but that's the nice thing, and that's probably why we're going to see more Imperial than anything else because the amount of options that they get.
All right. Let me bring back Staniszewski. Looks like we got a little blip. All right, and we keep it going here. All right, in our top 8, we have our currently reigning for how many years, boys? How long is it? 2.5 year?
Not my
Has it been 3 years?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I know who the current reigning champ really is.
Who's that?
Dubbed by Wade Pache himself towards the old FFG Center, it is technically Aaron the Coach Crawl. He went up there for some other event, and Coach they met up and had fun, and Wade declared him the X-Wing champion of 2021.
There you go. So Ali, of course, going to be defending his title here coming up in a few weeks. Let's go ahead and see what he's cooking up. And I see at least one pilot in there that is back for a vengeance. It was in his winning list, and not one that we really see too often. Whoever's next, I forgot where we are.
It's you.
Is it me?
It's Ryan.
Ryan.
Okay. So we have Yavin Vader. We have Moff Gideon with cloaking device, overtuned modulators, and elusive. A super defensive Gideon with just a way to. I'm going to go do an objective action while I'm cloaked, and then also popped over 2 modulators. It's a lot of stuff available to him. We have a Reaper, not Vizier, not Faroff, Major Vermile, with 7 sisters, still an amazing crew on the Reaper. Captain Hark as well. So twice a game, when you perform a red move, you may fully execute a red move. You may perform a focus action, I believe. And targeting computer and ion limiter override. So also when you fully execute a red move, you could do a barrel roll and potentially get either strain or ion depending on the roll result from your ion limiter override. So barrel rolling plus focusing with Captain Hark and the ion limiter override. So a couple tricks that Vermeil can do at I4.
And it's not that hard to do that red, right? Because they have a stop.
They have a stop, they have a 1 turn, they have the 1 sloop. Yeah, plenty of options.
Hard 2 as well.
R2, yeah.
Is it ion token or ionized?
Ion token.
Token.
Okay,
So being medium base is helpful with that one. And then Soontir Fel. Crackshot Predator Shield upgrade. So
Soontir who? Who that?
The Ace of Legend. Soontir Fel. Actually, so when Ollie won his worlds, it was Vader, Whisper being the TIE Phantom Whisper, and Grand Inquisitor. He did not have Soontir.
They didn't have Soontir at the time? Maybe I was thinking about when he's playing afterwards he had Soontir. But anyway.
Probably. So we don't see a lot of Soontir. I mean, he has 6 points, and it's kind of rough to get what you can get out, to get as much as you can out of him without him being too defensive or contributing objectively. But there definitely is something to saying, I have 2 I6 ships on the board that when they need to can pump out some offense or can be defensive. I mean, a lot of times when we see lists, we see 1 feature ace, plus maybe a couple of pocket aces or sub aces, I would say, and then some fillers or objective ships. Not often are we seeing 2 aces in a 4 or 5 ship. This is a 4-ship list. But Vermeil isn't a cheap filler. Vermeil's, I'm another anvil heavy hitter level ship. Moff Gideon is the filler-ish, but also his ability is extremely scary.
I look at Moff as tech. As when I
Tech. Yeah. Do you want defensive mods? No, you're not allowed. So I mean, those I6 ships, when you're used to seeing not 2 other I6 ships on the board, normally you could put, say if I was running a Republic list and I'm running 7B Anakin, right? That's the only I6 you expect to see in a Republic is an Anakin I6 of some point. Now that Anakin has to contest with both Vader and Soontir, which not great when 2 things can move after you and potentially collapse on you. Not that Anakin needs to just try and find a way to beat those ships 1-on-2, right? But it probably not as fun of a time for some ships that are normally used to facing only one other ship that can contest with its same time of movement and have to determine road-wise what their best dial move is going to be when they don't know if they're moving last or not.
Awesome. All right. Let's keep it moving, James. We get to Kester Smith, our next top 8 competitor.
First instance of First Order here. Has a Whisper Kylo with Brilliant Evasion, Instinctive Aim, Predator, Concussion Missiles, Pattern Analyzer, and Munitions Failsafe, and of course that Enhanced Jamming Suite. Has another Whisper in Wrath with Predator, Elusive, Ion Cannon, Pattern Analyzer, and Enhanced Jamming Suite. Has the classic Commander Malorus and the TIFO with Cluster Missiles. Has a DT-798 with Crackshot and Optics, and Scorch with Predator, Fanatical, and Optics. Choosing to go for the more offensive versions of these 2 FOs instead of just the shield upgrades. Hoping to pump out some more damage. Yeah, very scary list. Kylo, we haven't seen too much of him lately in the Whisper, but like, man, he is still a force to be reckoned with that Instinctive Aim Concussion Missile, being able to shoot that out. The back arc, just like zoom by, focus rotate or jam rotate or whatever you want to do, and shoot that concussion missile, even if you don't have a lock, and still use all kinds of mods on defense with the Brilliant Evasion and that Enhanced Jamming Suite to get the jam out there. And Wrath as well provides another great source for jamming. and has that ion cannon to still do 4 dice at range 1 and to bring some ionization out there to let these TIE FOs clean up with those extra attack dice, and Mallar's out there with those cluster missiles. So
Awesome.
Pretty nasty list.
And last but not least here, out of our top 8, Jonas bringing a Republic squad very similar to what we talked about earlier, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Contrail, Hawk. Now, Marcel, I got a question for you. So Rebels didn't show up in that top 8. I don't think they're even in the top. No, sorry, they are in the top 16, but that they didn't make it into the top 8. What pilot do you think showed up the most out of the rebellion? You got a guess for me?
Let's see, what probably Luke, I would say, is the most likely to show up the most.
Luke, and tied with that is Fen Rao in the Sheathapede.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
5 of them?
5. Yeah, 5 overall. Of course, from the ones that could be parsed, sometimes lists aren't put in correctly, but at least 5 of them. But you can see, looking at the frequency, you see a lot of Rebels there for repeated pilots. And they didn't show up into the top 8. So it's just interesting. So a lot of Rebel presence. If we go ahead and take a look at the graph here, you can see they were 14%, and they're pretty even here with our biggest group, of course, almost always being the Galactic Empire, because people like to be the Empire. I don't want to say the good guys, the bad guys. We're getting that. That's an argument for another day. But something very interesting. Now, for our audio listeners at home, Will, you want to talk a little bit about squad sizes?
Squad sizes, yes. So, in this tournament, there's 14 instances of 3-ship squads. We have 34 at 4-ship. That's the most, by the way. Very close, though, behind it with 5-ship is 31. 11 6-ship list, 4 7-ship list, and 0 8-ship list. Not one droid swarm out there.
Now, if we take a look at Swiss really quickly, we can just take a quick peek at what was the top performing list from the factions that didn't make it into the top cut. If we take a look at the Rebel Alliance, we see that Chris Bobby had an Ezra, Arvel, Magva, Saw list. I don't think we did talk about Scum and Villainy First Order. We didn't hit. There was a Commander Malrus, Lieutenant Gaelic, Scorch, DT-798, Ember, and Grudge. That coming from David Sutcliffe. And then the other faction that we didn't hit was Resistance, if I'm not mistaken. And Funwalk with the top performance there. Poe Dameron. This is which Poe? Just looking at it quick. This is
Falcon Poe.
Falcon Poe. There it is. Yes, you see the Millennium Falcon right there. BB-8, Finn, Lulo, and Kaz.
I do want to note that, like, out of the top 4 lists that for Resistance, all 4 of them brought a Falcon, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you got Poe, Rey, Poe.
yeah. So that's just an interesting little tidbit. Like,
And then they didn't do badly, right? It's the 10th,
No.
the 10th rank, 14th, 17th, 19th.
Yeah. So a lot of them ended up actually making it into the top 16 with those with Poe Dameron in that new Falcon.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So thank you to the TO for the Sith Taker Open, keeping a online tournament so that we could take a look at those stats. And, of course, thank you to Pattern Analyzer for being able to parse out those statistics. Now, for our next section, I want to talk a little bit about World Prep, our World Prep section. And specifically, the topic is is how to practice / how do you practice? I kind of want to just talk to each other. How do we, each of us, practice / what do you find to be the most valuable thing that you do while playing? Because I think all of us look at practice very differently. And I think depending on your X-Wing journey, how you practice may be very different. Some people practice, it may be perceived as more serious than others, or more, more casual, or however you would want to parse it. But what I want to find out for each of us is, what do you find most valuable, and what are some suggestions that you can give to somebody else? So we'll go ahead and start with who put in that first point, the difference between game reps and practice.
Oh, I put in like 3 points because I thought I didn't know we were going person by person. I was just adding stuff into it.
Well, let's go ahead. Well, let's just open up that topic. So I'm going to alter the question. In your personal opinion, is there a difference between game reps and practice? And I want to start with Marcel. I'm curious to hear your answer, because again, I preface this whole conversation with, depending on where you are in your X-Wing journey, the answers to this can be very different.
Practice? We don't need no practice.
This guy's got 10 years of practice.
Yeah. Honestly, my practice really is, I'm not getting a lot of X-Wing in, so my practice is just flying the same list when I play casual. So just playing casual games here and there, little pickup games, and just flying the same list. So that's about the extent of my quote-unquote practice. So I'm not scheduling time with people to purposely practice. I'm not scheduling. I'm not breaking stuff down when I play. Now, that doesn't mean I'm like playing and not paying attention to what's happening.
Right.
Like I am, for example, one of the things that I've discovered over playing, again, not a lot, but just playing a couple games here and there, is the difference between what I put on Maurus, Commander Maurus, is night and day. Like it's one, you can go offensive and go cluster missiles or something else, or you can go defensive with Mag Pulse. Mag Pulse is strictly defensive. It is. You're not gonna. It knocks off crates, which is a defensive ability because you're
preventing points.
You're preventing points, and you are depleting and jamming, and it's defensive tech. You're not out there trying to put 2-3 shields off or damage on there. So I'm just paying attention, and since I am not playing a lot, that's probably the extent. Is usually when I play for fun, I'll play like silly fun lists. And I'll swap lists, every single time I play. So my version of practicing is playing casually the same list and making tweaks based on what I see. So if, with Maurus, I like certain upgrade. On Gaelic, I have not been able to find the correct juice. Like that tractor beam for me has been, it's been garbage. Like I've never tractored anybody.
All right.
So anyway, just playing around with like the different loadouts and different ships and taking Whirlwind out, putting in Ember or doing different things like that, just to so that's basically the extent of my quote unquote practices. Just
so would you say that your reps are more about like massaging the list to find what feels best?
To find what feels best, or to find what doesn't work. For example, another thing that I've been working on is I don't know if it was in last week's or 2 weeks ago's podcast, I mentioned that Whirlwind was getting killed every single time. Like even if I was winning the games, like Whirlwind would die. And I've started to hold back the urge to try to chase that proton rocket.
Okay.
And purposely keep.
I feel like we talked about that, but continue. Go ahead.
That's a difficult. I mean, when you get 5 red dice, it's difficult to hold back.
I want it now.
Red dice. There's like 5 ships over there. I'm bound to have 1 bullseye.
Right.
Yeah. So just, I'm not playing against an opponent because I just find like anybody who's random looking for game on the Discord. It's just, and actually, I think I played one against Brian, but it was the same thing. Brian was looking on Discord like, hey, looking for a game. I was like, hey, I'm around. So, yeah, it's just not really about who I play. It's mostly when I'm playing, I'm trying to like make mental notes of like, okay, Whirlwind keeps dying. Do I take Whirlwind out or am I flying Whirlwind wrong? Gaelic is not effective. Like Gaelic has produced 0 in almost all my games. Is like, do I have the wrong ship out there, or do I have the wrong loadout?
You running tractor beam?
I'm right now. I've been trying tractor beam, but that tractor's done nothing. I mean, the only ship that I tractored a ship once, and there was a ship that wasn't getting shot again. It was just more like a defensive tractor. Like, okay, go over there so you don't kill me. That's about it. Like that, I just can't get that to hit. But I've also been practicing like proud tradition versus elusive, so things like that, like little tweaks to see what like, do I use elusive enough, or do I want to like save my focus for, get behind somebody and still have like a modded offense shot, things like that. So
Okay.
So it's mostly tweaks, and I'm playing against myself just to play, see what worked, see what didn't work, and try to figure out like the things that I don't like. Like the things that I don't like is Whirlwind dies. Okay, so what can I do? Do I change them out, or do I play more defensive? If I play too defensive, then it's Whirlwind kind of not contributing, etc. But I'm not switching my list like that because I'm not playing enough. I'm not going to switch my list just because I know I'm not going to put in the reps to get good at anything else.
Okay, so you think the familiarity of what you have has a higher value to you than the possibility of what might be maybe objectively a better decision? The familiarity is more valuable to you?
Yes, 100%. So I think, and this goes to everybody out there. Right now, the quote unquote meta is so wide open. We just saw Fawn winning with like a list that won Gen Con last year. There's the other Republic list. There's the Django and Kanan list. There's a lot of stuff that's good, including a lot of Resistance and Republic lists that are good. Sans the STO results, but there are good lists out there for that. Nate Moore has been, asking me about lists and stuff like that. My advice to him is fly what you are already doing, like whatever feels right for you, and tweak it. Like, don't try to chase like whatever somebody else is doing, because every faction has a chance. Every faction has a chance, and every faction has maybe like 2 or 3 different ways of doing it, and it's valid. The choices you make during the game, your familiarity with what's on the opponent's side. So again, getting some reps in just to see like, okay, what am I going to be playing again? Like, the token sharing. What does the token sharing want to do? Why is that hard? The Vader and, the boys plus other stuff. Like, why is, how do I deal with it? So it's not more about like, what list am I going to fly? Is what do I know that I'm going to remember the triggers and I know what it wants to do? And then just tweaking it based on what is currently popular out there. So if Vader's popular, just figuring out like, okay, it's like we said last week, just getting the reps in to say like, how am I going to deal when I play against Vader? How am I going to deal when I play against 7B Anakin? How am I going to deal when I play against Kanan Boba, and Rook. Just not switching your list around as much, tweaking it, not switching
Right.
it, is just getting better at it and learning the approach versus the different archetypes that you're likely to see.
All right. Now, I want to flip this now to Ryan. Ryan, one of the things you want to talk about is your style of practice, and you specifically kind of bracketed as roll it back and fix it. Hit me with that.
Yeah, so I think this is more. This is you. There's two philosophies of this. One of it is just a way of practice where all you're doing is you get to a point in the game where you believe it could be further into the game. It could be only to the first engagement. It could be to the second or third turn of engagement. All you're trying to do is get a feel for, was my approach correct? Did I start my game off with the correct goal in mind? Where are the obstacles and objectives placed meaningfully to help my win condition? Did I choose the correct moves? It's a lot of like early stuff that can easily ripple and snowball the rest of the game, but you're not playing out the rest of the game because you're just trying to get to the point of where this is the pivotal stuff. This is where we can much easily reverse engineer everything we just did. We can talk about it because we're only about 3 or 4 turns into the game. We can go, all right, this ship took this path. Was this the right path? Or should have gone a different way? Or could I have decided something else differently with these other set of ships in my list? And it's a lot easier to break down what happened in a game when there's less of the game to talk about. And when the beginning of the game can be so pivotal to the rest of the game, whether it's where you deploy, where you put your obstacles and objectives, and then how you came out of the gate in turn 1 and 2 to lead to the engagement, those can be easily broken down and find out where the quote ripple effect really brought it to a positive or negative game state for you. You can even take it so far as to say, all right, if you're clearly between you and a friend, you're finding out one of these two is a clear advantage, right?
Right.
You could do a complete reverse engineer method. Say, all right, let's focus on just the list that is on the negative end of this matchup. Literally put the ships. Don't even try and like start in deployment. Put them in a reasonable spot. Place them on the board where you think that is going to be a positive engagement for you. Like pick them up, put them in the middle of the board, and say, all right, I want this ship to be here, here, and this other ship to be here and here, and I need you to not be here and here. Okay? And then try and reverse back how can you get to that point. Sometimes you can't do that completely because your opponent obviously has agency in which ways they're going to go, but it's a way you can decide and figure out, even if I can like take the dials and completely out of the game and just say, if I just put all this stuff exactly where I think I want it to be, are you even correct? Right? Even if you could get to that point, if you do the math on like the expected results of the engagement that you just put yourself in freely, is it still coming up positively for you, or are you not thinking about it correctly? Should you be doing something else, or selecting a different goal and then build a different engagement from that new goal you found that you have to try and achieve, because the one you thought you should have been able to achieve, you can't or shouldn't try to attempt. It doesn't have as high of a success rate as you originally thought. The other sort of philosophy on the roll it back and fix it. So after doing all that, you roll it back and try again, basically. But the other part of it is whether you are playing that type of practice or you're doing a rep. I think it's very important, and I don't know when this mindset came to be. This is very ingrained with a lot of X-Wing players, and I think it's something we need to like not do as often as we currently do. If we're not playing a game in a competitive, organized event, I don't know why we constantly beat ourselves up on mistakes to where you say, okay, I'm in a practice game with Marcel, right? And one of us dials in a maneuver. We're trying something, see if it works because we have to try it, or we believe we have to try this maneuver. And we land on a rock, okay? I know a majority of the X-Wing players will be like, that's my mistake, I got to deal with it. and try and play out the rest of the game. Honestly, don't do that. You've already recognized the mistake. Roll it back. Discuss, all right, what was your ship's goal? Why did you go for that move? You land on the rock. We know it's a mistake. Roll it back. Let's pick a different maneuver that still attains the goal you were trying to do, but doesn't hit the rock. Or maybe you talk with your practice partner and you find out maybe that wasn't the best goal in mind and you shouldn't have tried to go that hard for that maneuver. Pick something else, readjust your goals, and figure out if that, and continue the game from there. I think this whole thing of like, oh, I got to learn the hard way from my mistakes. Not in practice, not in any free play games. Just roll it back, fix it. You're not gonna. Neither of you are gonna learn more by letting that mistake play out the rest of the game, because you're gonna find out a result to a game where someone made a mistake instead of trying to see, like, in the matchup, what if that mistake doesn't happen? Do I still win the game, or do I not win that game? You can't count on your opponent making that high level of mistakes. So it's best to roll it back, fix it. Sure, I made a mistake. You could still learn from that mistake, but you could also fix it and get the correct type of practice where you faced a list that's chosen decisions more optimally and not made, maneuver mistakes or whatever it may be. It could even be target selection. You go through a whole round of combat and you don't get a successful, a success step towards your goal in the game. You talk with your opponent and be like, I wonder what combat would have been like if I would have did this differently. Mm-hmm. And then talk it over with them, and they say, and you both agree, like, yeah, let's see what happens. Roll it back, do it again. Just get it. You get more informed information by not having random mistake-ridden games when you have the chance to go back and fix it and try it all again. And then you don't have to wait a whole nother game to see if that was right or not. You found out right then and there by rolling it back. Maybe I was right or wrong. Maybe you were right the first time. But you don't know if you're right or wrong unless you try the multiple attempts if it's available. That all makes sense in general?
Yep.
Yeah, I think you also have to, like, with your practice partner, you have to really say, hey, I'm trying to practice. You can't just be like, hey, I want to run that back. Like, what do you think? Like, that's a conversation you need to have.
You
the expectations, right?
yeah, definitely clear expectations of, hey, I'm trying to practice, and I may want to take something back, or, like, talk to me, tell me what you think about what I'm doing, kind of thing, and having that, like, open discussion.
Yeah, but I just think the whole I made the mistake, I have to live with it mindset, I think that should go away in X-Wing, to be honest. Unless it's like an organized competitive event where, like, mistakes will then happen and you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I also think, Ryan, part of that comes from, I think, there are some people who they don't feel like they can. So, for instance, I know I would feel comfortable, Ryan, like if you and I were playing, we said we're going to practice, the idea of, like, stopping and discussing, breaking things down, like, that sounds awesome. Like, that sounds fun to me. But I know there are some people that if I were to play a game with them, I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing that up, or, like, I would feel bad about doing that on their time. You know what I mean? Like, the idea of, like, even in a casual setting when they're like, oh, we'll roll it back. I know for myself, it's like yeah, cool, small things here and there maybe, but I wouldn't want to get into the habit of doing it continuously as for practice. Like, I'm talking, like, just playing kind of like the reason why maybe that mindset fits is sometimes people don't feel like they can do that with other people's time, especially if they have limited playing time. That's just a guess.
Yeah.
Maybe a corner case.
If you're playing a roll it back game, where you're planning on rolling back a large level of stuff, that has to be something you and your opponent are planning on doing before even starting a game.
Yeah.
I think what I'm discussing that deals with, like, the more regular play, like, free play weekend, right? I go to X-Wing on Saturdays most of the time to go play some game, pick up games with friends, right? on average, my rollback offers to them is like, oh, they did a maneuver and they hit a rock. Hey, you want to take that back and let's just like you could just pick a different move so you don't end up on that rock and we keep playing the casual game. Like, not only does that probably feel a lot better, not have to like play a whole game with dealing with your ship hitting a rock in like the first turn of engagement, which is a huge snowball.
Yeah.
But also, like, you as the player who wants to see the more optimal outcome and play against it to know more about, like, all right, how do I actually handle this matchup when my opponent doesn't hit a rock, right?
Yeah, because that becomes more valuable practice, right? Like, your opponent flying a ship off the board first turn, let's say, doesn't help you at all if you're trying to learn something. In a tournament, that's a different discussion. But interesting take there. Will, I want to roll it to you. How do you practice? What are your thoughts on practicing?
My thoughts on it are that I should be picking a list and sticking with it, but I'm still rolling through a couple different lists. But it has helped me to play these multiple lists, like play some Django, play some Imperials, because to me, how I learn like what a list is trying to do is to get in the pilot seat. Like, go out there and be like, well, obviously I would always deploy my Vader on the opposite side. Like, I'm always going to split Django and Grievous, things like that, where at least if I am able to make those decisions, I can see the potential for my opponents in the future to do the similar decisions, to like get some expectations out of the list. Because a lot of my games are just like pickup games online. There's no telling that like someone's bringing like one of these like high tier competitive lists. So that's one of the ways that I do it is it's not exactly like filthy net listing, but like I need to know what this squad does. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean it's know your enemy, right? Is what you're saying.
Right, because the same thing if you're just like, yeah, you're one of those V Reapers and you like carry a force crew or whatever, right? Like, if you're no shame, James. It was just a good example of just like it's the same thing. I'm just like, yeah, you're one of those X-wings. You guys normally shoot like proton torpedoes or whatever, right? Like, being able to correctly identify and be like, oh, okay, so this is the boy and it's got attack speed. I understand all that. I understand its limitations of what it can do. Has been helpful. As far as reps, I do agree with the rollbacks of like, as long as it's like small things, like obviously like road, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sorry, you can't turn that K turn into a 2 straight because you lost road. But things like, be like, why aren't, well, like, oh, I thought you would come at me, so I didn't risk picking up this objective. And I was like, I can go 3-on-1 over here. Like, you have no reason to be scared. So I do like that kind of like very early corrective too. This isn't like, 10 minutes left in the game kind of stuff. But to me, that's a lot of what I take away from games is. Because like moment to moment, right? Like it's more sometimes just chaos out there, right? To where you got to do what you can do. So a lot of what I take away is like deployment and rocks. If I'm flying the same list multiple times, I try to at least get some idea of what I want from obstacles. Do I want them spread out? Do I want them on my opponent's side, expecting them to fly past them into more open area where I deploy? And same thing like. Just deploying your ships, right? That has such a big impact sometimes, especially with how fast some ships are. Aether sprites, cloaked whispers and stuff like that can get to you and shoot you turn 1 if you're not prepared for it. So just like I do a little thing where to try to help me out. But it's one of the things where I just like tilt my ships. If I deploy them all the way on the outside, I'm trying to do this on camera. If I deploy them all the way on the outside, I tilt them in just a little bit. It's not for like to line for bullseye or anything. It's because it's because I can get to the other side of the battlefield with a slight angle faster, right? And so that's these little things where I'm trying to pick up on deployment of like, okay, never make that mistake again. Never leave Django thinking him and a force point and a reinforce can take down a whole squad. And everybody else is like scrambling to try to like get across midfield in time. So that's a lot of what I think we've all like deployed our ships and been like, well,
I've lost the game. I've had that happen for sure. You set up and you go,
start to this game.
I lost.
I haven't even set a dial yet, and we're already going to plan B and C. So that's, like I said, I think that having like either a defined deployment, right, or at least like one or two, like I'm trying to describe. Because I've just been, for a lot of lists, I steal Marcel's opening, 2 fast ships on the center, and then some ship in the middle.
Yeah.
And the reason Marcel had done that for so long is that as long as your ships are fast enough, like double reposition or 5 forward boost or whatever, you can make that kind of deployment do whatever you need to get all them onto the right side or get flanks on each people. So figuring out that kind of versatile deployment, or like I said, at least what you want on your turn 0, because that's something that you can see the ramifications of through the whole game. When you're like, why did I bunch up all these obstacles when I'm flying large bases? That doesn't make any sense. And you just got to make that little notation down. Always spread out obstacles or bring smaller obstacles. Maybe I'm bringing the wrong obstacles. But yeah, a lot of the, unfortunately beyond that, a lot of that's just like see your pants kind of stuff, and kind of really list dependent. So hard to extrapolate information from that. But I should. This is a new turning point for me. I'm going to have to lock down a list and actually start getting some true reps in with it.
It's true. All right. What about you, James? Practicing. How do?
Honestly, for me, I am not a good practicer. I am, like Will, I'm very wishy-washy on lists. But once I get a list down, I mean, sort of reiterating the same thing that everyone else has said of getting lots of practice in, especially for deployment, and checking to make sure, like, if I deploy like this and my opponent deploys like this, what do I have to do? Or maybe I need to move one of my ships a little on the other side of this ship. Maybe I want my support ship on the outside or the inside, depending on what I want to do or like what kind of list I'm facing. So kind of taking into this consideration, just started building out a little flow chart of if this, then that, then this is what I do. Have multiple different setups that are practiced setups. And then just kind of getting in there and just throwing stuff at the wall until something sticks a couple times, and that's basically it. Like one of my favorite archetypes that I fly a lot is 5 4-point ships, or initiative 4s and in Republic, and 5 4-point ships, and just kind of fitting in different pieces and seeing what works and seeing what making sure I have what I think something Will mentioned was having a idea of what happens if I go against this matchup that's very popular right now. So having an answer for like the not only like the different lists that I might face or list archetypes that I may face, but also the different scenarios that I may face. So make sure that I have some type of crit generation in the list somewhere
Right.
for the salvage. Make sure I have fast enough ships for assault to kind of bounce from objective to objective. Make sure I have a ship in the list that can survive a round and chance to make sure I get that point, and then maybe swap him out. Or make sure that I have someone that gets an extra action somehow for to make sure that they're not left out in the cold when they have to scramble. So making sure that I have an answer, I have a tool in my toolkit for each of these different scenarios and possible matchups that I may face. And I think something maybe Ryan put down here in our notes is get your physical elements squared away, which is something that I am really big on. Like if I am practicing with the list, I will have all of those things in like set up already at home. Like,
Right.
Make sure that if there's any possible way that I'll need this, and I have extras of it, and I have it all set away in a little tiny box, ready to go. So as soon as I get to the table, I dump it all out, organize it, and then ready to go.
You're ready to go, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to like, oh, I need jams because I have a mag pulse. You know what I mean? I already have that jam there.
Yeah. So going through what you need before you reach the table. That's an important part.
Yeah, and nowadays you really need at least a few of everything with all the different effects that we have in the game.
Right.
Like gas clouds do ions now. Gas clouds do strains. Make sure you have enough stress if you get panic piloted, multiple times. Make sure you have enough. Like depletes. Make sure you have depletes. Like I don't have a ship.
Make sure you have depletes, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I don't have a ship in my list that does depletes. Why would I need depletes? It's like, well, you may end up facing someone that has a bunch of mag pulses, or
yeah, you get depleted exactly.
Yeah. So make sure you have enough stuff that way you don't have to borrow from your opponent.
Perfect. Something else I wanted to talk about is like I know. This is the teacher side of me. Generally, most people are bad at learning, and it could be for many, many reasons that we hold ourselves back from reaching our highest potential whenever you're trying to improve yourself in whatever. In X-Wing, I think the two most common ones is, the first one is what I'm going to call active thought. Is before you start, because it doesn't help afterwards, or it doesn't help as much. Before you start, try to identify something that you want to focus on. Identify what is it that you are trying to. If you say, I want to practice, that's great. Good job. You'll probably get something done. I bet you'll get more done if you say, I want to practice X. What part? Are you focusing on your opening? Do you want to get even more finite? I'm focusing on specifically the maneuvering for this pilot in the opening. You can become as finite as you want. But the more finite you are and the more clear you are in the expectations for what you are practicing, the more you will achieve. Period. End of story. It's proven. That is the first thing. The second thing is sometimes mental overload. Specifically talking about if you identify too many things that you want to practice, you may come out of your practice with having learned nothing. If you spread your mental capacity out too thin for what you are capable of doing, which is different for every single person. I know for myself, I can maybe at max focus on 2 to 3 things, maybe. When I'm trying to focus practice on anything I'm doing, whether that is music or X-Wing, those are the 2 big things in my life, right? I have to pick 2 or 3 things, and that's it. Because if I add a 4th there, all of my practice for those things ends up being less quality. Identify a set of things. Don't over choose what you're going to practice, and I think that will be more successful for everybody. All right? Help you out. That's for free. All right? Master teacher here. I got you, fam. All right? So, yeah, man, the practicing is definitely something that that all of us need to do in all of the things. All right? So, let's go ahead. Is there anything else we wanted to hit when it talks about practicing, what's valuable for you? Anything else you guys want to hit before we move on to our boogeyman?
Just we're talking about the moves and the things that you do in game, the choices that you make in the list, the choices that you make, while playing the game, etc. And this kind of goes counter to the roll it back. Like, you do want to have those practice games, those roll it back practice games, but you also want to have not those, because the other things that come up is your humanity, your natural tendency to either get down on yourself, to be overconfident in something and be like, well, like myself, I'll chase this proton rocket, I'm gonna kill that thing, and then you roll either you get killed because you're I3 or you rolled 1 focus and 4 blanks. So just understand, when you're playing these games, don't just think about like what the list did and the choices you made and the tweaks that you got to make, but also just understand your own tendencies. What happens when things go right? Do you get overconfident? What happens when things go wrong? Do you like get grumpy and then like shut down? Just be mindful. That's a tougher one to do, because you cannot purposely practice like, I'm gonna have my Sunterfell roll 4 blanks and the elusive into another blank at range 3 and then get a like a direct hit and die. Like, you can't plan for that. It just happens sometimes. But just when those things happen, just be mindful of what your tendency is. You're not going to change your tendency, but if you can recognize it, if you can acknowledge it and recognize it, then you can be aware of it. Like, again, if your tendency is to get down on yourself, if you don't want to do that, you probably got to go see a shrink, but we're not going to show you how to do that here. If you get down on yourself when someone goes down, you get down on yourself when someone goes wrong, but be aware that that's what you do. So when you're thinking like, oh, this game is over, just be aware, like, wait, is this game over, or is is this just like, or is this just like my tendency? Yeah, and that like, I know it because that happens to me, because I tend to be overconfident with my red dice.
Right.
I know that for a fact. Like, my red dice, I tend to be overconfident in, and I do tend, when things go sour, sometimes to kind of like try to beat myself up for it, because I hold myself to a certain standard, and when I don't hit it, I'm like, start beating up by myself. And like a couple times I've noticed myself like getting down on myself, and then I look at the score, I'm up by like 8 points. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, I'm still losing because I haven't done the things that I wanted to do, versus just looking at the game state and looking at the board.
Right.
Dude,
you're muted, Dion.
Don't just keep, come on, you gotta play it off. You just keep going. It's fine. It was not even 10 seconds worth of audio. Come on.
Anyway, so yeah, just be mindful of your tendencies, and if you got a friend that you're playing with, give each other that feedback, because maybe sometimes it's hard to catch it on yourself.
Absolutely. Good stuff, fam. Worlds, 4 weeks away. Looking forward to it. We're going to end today with our Boogeyman of the Week segment. But before we do that, for those of you who are watching live and maybe you listen tomorrow morning, tomorrow on Tuesday, we're going to have a special edition stream of Gold Squadron and talking about a board game that's not X-Wing. We're going to be talking to Ryan Farmer about his launch for his Kickstarter for Encounters Shattered Waste. We're actually going to be having a launch party for him, and as the composer of the music for this game, I was like, let's do something, Ryan. And he's like, okay. So super excited about that. We are going to talk about the music side. We're mostly going to talk about the game. We're going to play the game. We'll play some TTS. And by the way, boys, you're invited to come play if you'd like to come play. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. And our plan is to be live at around, I'm stalling. I'm going to my phone. Oh, you got Ryan Farmer on your phone, Dion? You got it like that? Yeah, I do. And what? That's right. About 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m. Central. We're going to lock down the exact time. We'll be posting it on all the social medias. Check it out. Super excited to talk about it. All right, Boogeyman of the Week. The Anakins. Now, the Anakins that we've seen, specifically, it's 7B, right? Like, let's talk about it. We talked about Vader last week. That's Anakin. You know what we mean? Republic. We're talking about the Republic. Let's start here. The ones that we haven't seen too much of, and my question is just quick hits. Do you got to worry about it for Worlds? Y-Wing Anakin? Yannikin? Do I take time worrying about it, boys?
No. This isn't last year. No.
I think you need to recognize if it shows up what it's doing, because I know Tyler Tippett ran he won the game, but he went up against a list that featured Y-Wing Anakin and Oddball and another Y-Wing, but because Anakin had Weapon System Officer and State Council, he was able to fire the full torp and still pass a lock on to someone else. So you got to watch out. Just
identify the shenanigans.
Yeah, don't turn your brain off as soon as you see a ship that features an I-6 pilot. Like, you should know what that pilot does and still assess. Should you probably win the game against it? Probably. But don't turn your brain off, because then that's how you lose.
Okay. Now, the next Anakin I want to talk about, Naboo Anakin. All right, this is the one that does the barrel roll before activation. That's not actually a barrel roll per action stuff. Do I got to worry about it?
You should all be worried.
Not this year.
Not this year?
Same level as Y-Wing Anakin. Recognize what it's doing. You should be okay.
Okay. Then we have three Anakins. Sorry, three more Anakins. Right? Three.
4 more Anakins.
Four. Yeah.
What? There's four. There's 4. Siege of Coruscant. Okay.
Siege of Coruscant.
So the next least likely to show up is calibrated targeting.
No, I'd say regular Ada is the least next.
Regular Ada.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 6-point Ada.
6-point Ada Anakin, that's not showing up.
No.
But if it does, okay. I think that's actually probably the lowest on the list.
The lowest on the list.
Just get it in arc, and then it should go down.
Okay. Now we're left with Ada, 7B, and what's the other one?
Well, it's SOC Ada.
SOC Ada. Regular
CLT.
CLT, and 7B. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. So who's the next one that we're knocking off the list? Or do we need to talk about all 3 of these?
I would knock off SOC Anakin, the other Ada.
Yeah, the Adas are really good, but the system it loses so much from the Aether Sprite.
I mean, in reality, we are only talking about one. One is showing up.
And that is, drum roll,
the 7B.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, like the 7B Anakin is really the only one that's showing up, because once you get, even if you get a couple with the like the ETA one. Again, there's other options. You're probably it's not the same thing. Like it's doing something very similar to what like Obi-Wan will be doing, but just at a higher initiative. And you can look at the stats in whatever the list fortress or the what is that called, the pattern analyzer X-Wing Versal app. And I'm pretty sure you won't see any or many actual, 7. Is it? If it's not 7B, what is it? It's just 7? Delta 7? Delta
Just
7.
Delta.
Yeah.
7, yeah.
Okay, so now let's open this up. Why is the Delta 7B good? We don't have to worry about comparing it to the other ones. We identified that it is the best one. Why is it good?
Let's start with the chassis. The chassis ability is extremely good. Fine-tuned controls. After you fully execute a maneuver, you may spend 1 force to perform a boost or barrel action. That is basically that combined with your normal action, which can be another reposition of the other type, or lock, or focus, or purple evade. You have the capability of doing linked actions that's not stressful, which with that ship's dial is phenomenal, because that dial has a lot of valuable reds with 5K, 4K, 2 sloop, hard ones that are white, hard 2s that are white. I mean, it's not great at clearing stress when it does get it. But also you got Anakin's ability, which is not nothing. After you fully execute maneuver, if there's an enemy ship in your front arc at range 0 to 1, or your bullseye all the way, you may spend 1 force to remove a stress token. So that could be after you fully execute a red, and you just spend a force to get rid of the stress and do actions. Or maybe you tried the red move, you didn't get anyone with this ability. You don't have to do a blue move afterward if you think you're going to get someone in range 1 or in your bullseye. Do a white move and clear the stress that way. Being an I-6 ship with that type of repositioning and that open of a dial after those types of double actions is really, really good. On top of 3 force, which is also really good, and a full arc 3 die attack. The only negative issue you see with this ship is a comparison to other aces. This is only a 2 agility ship versus a 3 agility ship. This is more on the Poe end of the spectrum, where it's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to reposition and be in some crazy spots. But if it gets looked at by enough things, it'll take damage. Unlike Poe, though, Anakin has the Force. Passive mods, extremely good, as we've known in the past. And doesn't have a really big loadout pool, but Republic has a lot of valuable loadout options. Or Anakin here has valuable slots to fill, with 2 force slots, a talent slot, an astromech slot, and a mod slot. 15 points available. There's some quality picks to be had, and there are a lot of variations we've seen that have been all successful across the board too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different options that you can go for your loadout. Like Ryan's mentioning, you have the shield upgrade to give you some extra survivability and actually get you to that 7 points of health to really match that T70. You can go chopper to help with getting extra evades, or once you actually get it turned over, to getting out some jams to some enemies. Could be very helpful, especially in a X1 Vader, specifically Boy Vader world out there. Having that chopper jam to jam off that lock could be really vital. You can also go the other astromech, the big one at least, the R2-D2, for some regen, or to get rid of some critical devices. Or the last one that I don't think we see it too much of would be outmaneuver, but it is there. It is out there doing things. So you have to. I would say that one is the one that, like, I think Will and I have talked about it a couple times. That like really changes how you engage Anakin, or engage with or engage Anakin. So outmaneuver can really change how that works.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on the 7B Anakin Extraordinaire? All right. Will?
As far as like builds,
Sure. Let's go ahead. Let's hit some builds. What are some common places where he's showing up? And we've talked about him a little bit already today.
sure. Well, I mean, in the Republic, I mean, you really are looking at two different ways to support this Anakin. You're looking at the 7th Fleet Gunner Lat. Not only is it giving him a 4th dice, it's also giving him 2 rerolls, even perhaps a defensive reroll with that dedicated. The other side of the spectrum is tossing him tokens through Born for This. You can throw him an evade through kickback. You can throw him focuses from any of the other V-wings as well as like click kind of helping out. The click kind of works like 7th Fleet Gunner, where if you're taking away one of their defense dice, you kind of add in one of your own in some situations. Not very often do we see him with just like some like generic line troops. He's almost exclusively paired with Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. Kenobi can spend his force to let Anakin keep their focus. So some great synergy there with like Born for This. Like Contra or Click can throw a focus to Anakin, and Obi-Wan can flip his force to allow him to basically have 2 focuses for attacking, or it would be for defending. He probably is attacking very early in the initiative round. So that's the... Let me bounce this to you guys, though. Target priority. If you see like a Lat versus Anakin, what? I'm not sure what question best to ask, but what does it take to go after Anakin right away versus his support or his fillers?
I always go with. Oh, go ahead.
Go. You first, Marcel.
Okay. No, I was going to say I always go based on what the opponent's doing. If the opponent is being aggressive with Anakin, then you want to at least acknowledge him, especially because he is so fast. He can, he can 5 forward boost and still action, or 5 forward and double reposition. 5 forward boost at an angle and then barrel roll further. I mean, that gets you pretty far out in places. So it really depends. If he's flying, let's say they're flying a Hound or a Hawk, then if he's feeding you Anakin, you have to acknowledge him. You have to shoot at him. You have to discourage him from playing. And you have a few rounds before the Hawk gets into play. But if he's bringing in the Hawk at a fast enough pace to where, like, in round 2 or 3, it's getting close to the board, then of course you delete that thing. I mean, because when you delete the Hawk, you don't just damage Anakin's output, but you damage like the entire list output. And if you're flying one of these token sharing ones, and he's an R2D2 Anakin, it's kind of tough because the likelihood of killing either a shield upgrade or an R2D2 Anakin with a token sharing support is very, very low. Even if you're shooting it 3 or 4 times, it's just very unlikely that you'll be able to kill it. You'll be able to discourage it, make it fly away for a little bit, regen a couple times, and then it'll come back. But you're probably not getting any points off of it unless you're playing the half points, at which point you're getting 3 points, which is equivalent to like killing a full V-wing. But it really depends on what they're feeding you, and if you're again, the token sharing ones, I'll probably try to discourage it, but I'm not going to chase them, and I'll go after whatever is feeding him the tokens. And that popular list probably kickback. Is it kickback?
Kickback's the evade torrent.
Yeah,
that's kind of a trap though. That's a 6 health ship.
It is a 6 health ship, but it's one that you can sneak a nasty crit in. Like, it's easier to deal with it. It's not going to 5-forward boost out of your way. Like, you know where it's going to end up.
True.
Torrents are pretty predictable.
Yeah. So you know where it's going to be. You know what it wants to do. And there's going to be an evade for someone. So might as well give it on the 2 agility ship that's not regenerating. So yeah, it's more of like what they give you, but in the token sharing one versus the very offensive one, I think your target priority changes a little bit. Don't chase a regen if it's not chance engagement. Yeah, if it's not chance engagement.
That makes sense. If he's already being cagey with his R2-D2 Anakin, probably not going to let you get those points.
Oh, no. Why? They're mine. All right.
sense.
Well, yeah, Anakin's going to be on the board. He's fast, maneuverable, defensive, and offensive. He can punch you in the face. So high likelihood that we see some Anakin be successful. Here's a question for you. We end up with a top 16 at Worlds. Is that their goal? Top 16? Top 8?
Top 8.
Okay.
Only 3 rounds on Sunday.
Right. Okay. Out of the top 8, we've talked. Our boogeymen so far have been Darth Vader, Anakin. Will there be more Vader or Anakin in that top 8?
I'm going to go 2 and 2. My prediction.
Even. He's going even.
I'm going to say out of the 8, half of it will be those 2. It'll be 2 Vaders and 2 Anakins. That's
wow. So you're going with it. You didn't even have to give me more exact numbers. It could have been 2
1.
I
can tell you it'll be 2 6-point Vaders and 2 Delta 7B Anakins. That'll be in the top 8.
Okay. Will?
I would say Darth Vader by like 1, just because I'm going to count Defender Vader in there as well.
That's fine. It's part of the boogeyman list. James?
Yeah, I'll say we'll have 1 X1 Vader, probably boy, and then 1 Defender Vader, and then 1 Delta 7 Anakin.
All right, so Vader 2-1. Ryan?
I think I'm going to lean with Marcel and go, wow, that's hard. So it's top 8. That's real tight. I think Empire's Darth Vader is going to have more showings than Anakin in the top 8.
All right, there you go.
Because there are more iterations of Darth Vader that I feel could be competitive.
Just to have something different, I'll go 1-1. 1 of each, and we'll fill the other 6 slots with stuff, with other stuff. There can only be 1, they say. All right, everybody. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this 300th episode of the Gold Squadron podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out. Again, a reminder, we'll be live tomorrow, Tuesday, February 28th, talking about Encounters Shattered Wastes. We will be live this week with some more Sector series, hopefully. And as we get into that top 16 for this series, we'll start breaking that down, looking at it more closely, and seeing if anybody's got some secret sauce that might end up affecting this World Championship meta. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Be smart and be safe. Gold Squadron out.